Crazy Castle series is not the most confusing series I've had to talk about. That would be Wonder Boy. But Kemco was really taking a shot at that most confusing title. And you might think, how confusing could it be? There's only 5 games in the series. Or is it 6? Or 7? All the confusion here stems from how Kemco kept changing the license that was attached to the games, including this one. In the US and Europe, it's The Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle. In Japan, it's Roger Rabbit, except when it's Mickey Mouse. See, it's already getting confusing. Then Kemco kept the Mickey Mouse name on a series of 5 games, only 3 of which are part of the Crazy Castle series. Depending on where you were in the world, Crazy Castle 2 could have been Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, or Hugo. And then for Crazy Castle 3, it could have been Bugs Bunny or Kid Clown. Kid Clown being a character Kemco invented for the US version of one of their Mickey Mouse games that was not part of the Crazy Castle series, but they used him in the Japanese version of Crazy Castle 3. At least Crazy Castle 4 only used Bugs Bunny, and Crazy Castle 5 only used Woody Woodpecker. Then there's another puzzle platformer that could be included with the Crazy Castle series, though it never used that name. That game could have been Mickey Mouse, Garfield, or Ghostbusters. So welcome to Crazy Castle, the series where no one's sure how many games are in it, or which characters or distinctive features define it. As best as I can pin it down, Crazy Castle games are puzzle platformers, though in most of the games you don't do any jumping, where you're presented with a stage to navigate and a series of items to collect. Collecting all of the items means you beat the stage and move on, and the challenge is in figuring out how to navigate around the level while avoiding enemies. Usually you have sets of staircases and doorways that you go up and down, and you'll find yourself dropping off high platforms or having to find power-ups to defeat enemies that are in your way. This game is based on, well, actually based on is too strong of a word considering it's the Crazy Castle series. This game features sprites in the style of Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit was a smash hit film, even in Japan, and it's best known for bringing together live action and animation in innovative ways, and somehow getting Disney and Warner Brothers to sign off on letting their characters share the screen. Of course, the plot of Roger Rabbit the game doesn't have anything to do with the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It just has a Roger Rabbit sprite as your main character, and there are enemies wandering around like the Weasels, Judge Doom, an Ape Bouncer, and Penguin Waiters. As you play, you go in and out of doors by hitting up and down. Yes, you have to hit down to go down the steps. There is a rather annoying aspect to the controls in this game. Roger has to move one full block on the screen at a time. So the controls often feel sloppy. You'll move too far, or you'll keep being forced to move forward when you don't want to. This isn't a difficult game, but the controls make it harder than it should be. A useful thing to keep in mind is that defeated enemies are permanently gone, so there's definitely an incentive to clear things out if you can. If you collect a boxing glove, then you can press B to shoot it at enemies and defeat them. This is something that only works once. I guess it's an invisible ink bottle? Well, if you collect it, you're indestructible for about 5 seconds, and can defeat enemies by walking into them. Just keep in mind that that invincibility doesn't last nearly as long as you think it does. You can also defeat enemies by kicking items into them, or knocking them off edges and dropping them on their heads. I found that getting them with items like this was harder than it seems, so I wound up not relying on it a lot. The enemy patterns can best be described as confusing. Some of them are straightforward. The Weasels are the only ones that will use the doors, for example, but the rules governing when enemies turn around, or which path they choose, isn't exactly clear. They're not really chasing Roger down. It's more like they'll randomly do a movement for a little while and then switch up. And then the level design becomes what traps you with the enemy, not the enemy's actions. There are 60 stages in the game. Most of them scroll horizontally, but a handful of them scroll vertically instead, though the direction of the scrolling doesn't seem to make a whole lot of difference in how you play. Collecting the last heart on a stage will earn you an extra life, though every stage also gives you a password to pick up from that point, and there are infinite continues, so getting through this game requires more patience and brute force than skill. The game is about an hour long if you know what you're doing. The Disk System version of this game doesn't seem to be especially popular in Japan. However, when it was re-released on the Game Boy as Mickey Mouse, that game got quite a bit of attention. That version of the first Crazy Castle game is a beloved classic. My feeling on this first game is, it's okay. I wish that the controls were tighter and that the levels were better designed, but it's fine. It's not the deepest puzzle game in the world, but it has a kind of a decent, old arcade-ish quality to it. I think the sequels, where they started to figure out more of what they could do with a puzzle platformer, wound up being better games. While people probably won't hate this one, if you just skip to the later games, you're not missing out.